We pulled the car out with the intention of doing this video that we're doing now, but ironically, after it broke, every time I try to record a video, something goes wrong. It never fails. What we're dealing with right now is just finished washing the car and we were going to the next location to film. As we were backing out of the car wash, the oil pan got caught on something as we were backing out. So now it's completely on the ground. It was kind of hanging low before, and like I knew it needed to be fixed soon, but it wasn't completely on the ground like it is now. We had three options. We either go to the dealership, which is 15 minutes away, and on the way there, we just deal with the dragging noise of the oil pan shield. Go home, which is only 5 minutes away, and still deal with that dragging. Or we just pull off to the side behind the car wash and find something to fix it. As you can probably tell, I couldn't find anything to fix it, so I found two hair ties in the car. I'm gonna try and tie these together. I'm gonna try and tie these together and then tie them around the oil pan shield and tie that to the rail that it was mounted to, if that makes sense. I'll show you guys. Hair ties tied together. We're gonna get one in right here, just like so. Bring this up and tie this around like that. So it's not completely fixed, but it's better than me dragging down the road. So I'm gonna go home and get a zip tie or something to get that back up. All right, we're still continuing this intermission. So like I said, we needed some zip ties whenever we fixed the oil pan shield a second ago. So we went to AutoZone, we got some zip ties. And I figured, you know what, while I was there, I'm gonna fix the cord hanging down in the ceiling of the car from the dash cam, which I'm assuming it just probably became loose because of the heat or something like that. So we got some adhesive tape. And then the last thing we got was some actual adhesive liquid. Just in case this tape doesn't work. So we got these three things. Hopefully this zip tie is good enough for the oil pan shield. I don't think we'll have any problem with it, but I'm gonna show you guys exactly what we're gonna do to fix it. I'm happy I started on this earlier today instead of later, because I actually have time to finish doing everything. But this should not even take me 2 or 3 minutes, but it's gonna save me from a massive freaking headache, because no one wants to hear anything dragging down the freaking street whenever they're driving their car. Honestly, we're probably gonna need like 4, like 2 on each side. I'm not gonna be able to get to the center of the car. I mean, I could jack it up and throw it on some jack stands, but I don't feel like doing that. If I can knock this out without having to do all that, then I'm gonna do it. So I got it all patched up. There's like a little hole inside the oil pan shield, thankfully, that is like right next to this rail. So we looped one of the ties through that hole and then looped another tie around the oil pan shield. I'm pretty sure this one on the right is gonna fall off soon, but the one on the left should be pretty good because it's inside of that hole inside the shield. So this should hold us over for like a couple of days until I actually go back to Ford and order the hardware. But yeah, if you have a low Shelby, or I'm pretty sure any freaking low car, you probably have to deal with this. Okay. It's ironic that all this is happening today because of the title of the video, but now that this is all fixed, I can actually drive this freaking thing, and we can go talk about what it's been like to own this car for 100,000 miles or 6 years.
What the dog doing?
Okay, yesterday, kind of a flop. We pulled the car out with the intention of doing this video that we're doing now, but ironically, after it broke, we just spent too much time fixing it. So let's just get straight back into things today. It's the next day, and I spent some time overnight actually getting everything together for what we're going to be talking about. So this big ass folder here contains every invoice, every document, every bill related to the car. And for the past 6 years, I've managed to collect all of this stuff. So we have a separate pile here. This pile is actually what we're going to be talking about today. This pile from the folder is just oil changes, inspections, alignments, pretty much anything like that. So this is all the regular stuff. The car right now as it sits is around 94,000 miles, and we've had oil changes done every 4,000 to 5,000 miles. So this right here, not important. What we're going to be talking about today is this here. So I'm going to go through everything in chronological order. I feel like I am missing some stuff, but that may be because of whatever dealer I was getting the car worked on at may have just preferred to do things digitally, whereas most of these were printed invoices. So let's jump right into it. All right, so starting directly from 2019, whenever we actually purchased the car, I found the car online from a dealership named Reineke Ford, I believe, in Ohio. This was in March of 2019. I was actually sitting at work at my desk, supposed to be doing work, but I found the car online for exactly $50,000 in 2019, which finding a Shelby for $50,000 in today's market, you'd probably be looking at something that has like 60 to 70,000 miles, probably around there. And it definitely won't be like a 19 or a 20. What made this deal even better was that this car only had like 290 miles or something like that. And it was actually owned by a neurosurgeon in Ohio who had the car for 2 years prior. I think he bought it brand new in 2015. He sold it back to that same dealership in 2017. Okay, so the very first thing in 2019, after exactly 2 oil changes, the very first problem that we had arrived at 8,000 miles, and it was one of the biggest ones, and that was the engine replacement. So if you either own a GT350 or you have heard around the world pretty much about GT350s, you'll know that these things consume a lot of oil, which is pretty common apparently for flat plane crank motors. One thing I didn't expect though was for it to happen to me so soon, this early into my ownership. By the time this had happened, I had owned the car for exactly 7 months, I think. It arrived to me in April, and this problem occurred in 2019. So the first time that I went into the dealer, they did a diagnosis, and they found that the car was using exactly 6 quarts of oil between oil changes. And I'll throw this up on the screen so that you guys can see. 6 quarts of oil being burned in between your oil changes, especially if you're getting your oil changed every 4,000 miles, is not normal. I didn't know that at the time because this was my first time owning something like this. So, I was learning all of this as I was going. This service, after the diagnosis, and then after coming back for the actual labor and getting the motor put in, overall lasted a week. I mean, they diagnosed the car on, I believe, a Monday. Because I had left it over the weekend from that Friday to that Monday. So they started the diagnosis on Monday. They called me on that Tuesday, and they let me know that the motor needed to be replaced. I guess this was after they had spoken with Ford. By that Wednesday, they had started working on the car, and by that Friday, I had the car back. So big kudos to what used to be Crown Ford in Fayetteville, North Carolina. I believe they got bought out like in 2023 or something like that, so I don't know what the name of that dealer is anymore. But this very first problem started us off with $30,000, $30,000 to $35,000 in labor, parts, and cost. Now, thankfully, since the car was relatively new around this time, I only had 8,000 miles, and the factory powertrain warranty was still intact. I didn't pay a dime for this. What you'll find out later throughout each of these problems is that I haven't paid a dime for any of these things, thankfully. And that's because even after the factory warranty expired, I purchased an aftermarket warranty through Fidelity, which paid for everything afterwards. Okay, so a little less than a year after the motor was replaced, let's say in November 2019. In October of 2020, we dealt with our next major issue. I mean, between both of these issues, the 11-month period that we had, I was getting, my usual oil changes, inspections, things like that. The next big issue arrived when I noticed that when I was cruising on the highway in fifth or sixth gear, anytime I was above 5,000 to 6,000 RPMs, the car would get like a sudden jerk, and I couldn't really get the problem to replicate itself pretty frequently, but I knew that it happened pretty irregularly in like sixth gear around 75 to 80 miles per hour. Instead of taking it to the dealership and having them spending 2 or 3 days trying to diagnose the issue, I actually just went onto a forum that I'm still a part of to this day. On that actual forum, I found like 2 people out of the 60,000 people that are in this forum who were experiencing this same issue. And the issue was something called a flange nut, something that's like, I think like this size, and it was causing like a sudden jerk motion in the car. Like it literally felt like someone was pressing the brakes in the car whenever I was cruising. What they explained was between the motor revving out to 8,300 RPMs almost and everything else under the hood, the motor vibrates so much that a lot of things become loose, and the flange nut just so happened to be one of those things. Although the flange nut is a part of the transmission, it still was significant enough to cause this jerking motion. Whenever I went to the dealer, I told them that I had a hunch about what it was, and that turned out to be right. So thankfully I was a part of that forum. But all in all, after parts, labor, diagnosis, all that stuff, the total of that came out to around $750. So not as large as the motor replacement bill, but definitely still inconvenient, seeing as though at this point I had only had the car for about a year and a half. And after the oil changes and inspections and things, by this point in time, I had 2 major issues. So wasn't having the best of luck, but let's go on to the next big thing. This next issue is one that is not only common with GT350s, but it's common with S550s as a whole. So I didn't feel too bad about dealing with this, but still inconvenient as just like everything else. So what happened next happened about 5 months after the flange nut issue, and this was the AC, the infamous S550 broken AC issue. Happened to me too. And this wasn't the first time. This is the first of 2 times that it's happened for this car. For those of you who don't know, I did have a 2016 GT before this, which I traded that in for this, and that had 3 AC compressors replaced. So same problem. I already knew what it was as soon as it started happening. The signs are pretty telling as soon as it starts. So what will happen first, for those of you who haven't experienced this yet, is you'll start to hear a sudden, like a faint whine from your AC, and then the whine will get louder and louder, and the sound also increases with your RPM. So if you're going faster, the sound of the whine increases too, until eventually it starts blowing hot air, and then you'll know that you need a new compressor. And each time you go in for these, it's going to range between $2,500 and $4,000, depending on, I guess, where you are visiting. Whenever I went and got this service done in March of 2021, the total came out to $3,750. Again, covered by warranty. By this point, I think the warranty was probably like 2.5 years old. Don't quote me on that. Yeah, we were pushing it, but yeah, so $3,750 for the AC. Okay, so what do you know? As I mentioned, in March we dealt with the first of the 2 overall AC issues that we've had with this car, and then later that year in 2021, 6 months later in December, we dealt with another AC issue. So what the techs had thought was the issue at first in March wasn't actually the issue. So whenever the problem reoccurred so soon in December or later that year, they realized that, okay, it wasn't the compressor, it was also something else that I completely forgot. They replaced the AC system again, and this was another $3,750 down the drain. 2 ACs, that's like $7,500. Pretty hefty. But again, all thanks to that freaking warranty, we haven't paid a dime for any of this stuff. The next one is going to be another huge one. Pretty sure you're wondering why the hood is propped up, and that is because we are on a third motor.
Stop the cap.
The first motor that we had replaced was 6 months after we picked up the car in 2019, and the second motor lasted us 3 years and 52,000 miles around there. But actually, this second motor didn't have the same issue as the first motor. So the second motor wasn't oil related at all. It actually spun a rod bearing in cylinder 8. I still don't know to this day what exactly caused it, because I've been super persistent whenever it comes to getting those oil changes every 4,000 to 5,000 miles, which is exactly what's recommended in the manual of this car. So I still don't know what could have caused it, but yeah, I mean, we're on a third motor now. This time what had actually happened was I was driving down the road and just so happened to be on the road of the dealership, but at a stoplight, as soon as the light turned green, tried accelerating, and I heard a poof under the hood. Wasn't sure what it was, but immediately after it happened, the car went into limp mode. Thankfully, since I was on the same street next to the dealer, I drove the car back to the dealer, but I was unlucky because this was on a Sunday. So I parked the car in the parking lot of the dealership, put my keys in the little drop-off box, left the car there overnight, came back Monday. The dealer called Ford that Monday, and Ford did their usual checkups, you know, making sure that the owner, myself, wasn't abusing the car in any way, shape, or form. So after Ford did their checkups, the dealer went ahead and placed the order for the new motor. The new motor, I believe, showed up that Wednesday, and by that Friday, I was out again. The reason why I keep mentioning these timelines for these motor replacements is because there's a lot of stories of Shelby owners who have had their motors replaced, having to wait 3 to 4 to 5 months just to get their cars in and out of the shop. Fortunately, I haven't had to deal with that, but I'm even more fortunate that I haven't had to pay a dime for any of this stuff. That being said, slap on another $30,000 to $35,000 in total for maintenance for this car, and we're getting pretty up there. I mean, I think if I'm doing my numbers right, we're like at $70,000 or $75,000 total. Now that's about $20,000 to $25,000 over what I paid for the car. But again, I'm going to get to that point at the end of the video as to why I still think that this thing is worth buying. But you guys just got to hang on for a little bit. Okay, so really fast, very last issue, right after the motor had went, about a year later at 70,000 miles, the alternator actually went. I wasn't too upset about this just because I know how fast an alternator can burn out. The only thing that I was kind of concerned about is the fact that it died so fast. This issue actually stemmed from a prior fix. So about a couple of months before the alternator had went out, we replaced the battery. Something somewhere in between the technician fixing the battery and the alternator being replaced, what I was told was that the housing or the holder or whatever that the battery was sitting in wasn't properly sealed back from the last time that the battery had been replaced, and it was draining the alternator. Don't know how, but that's what was explained to me. At 70,000 miles, we had an alternator replaced. That was another $2,200 or $2,500. I can't remember. Again, the reason why I don't have the exact prices on any of this paperwork is because all of this reads zero at the bottom. Simply because, again, I had the warranty. So I'm kind of adding all of this up off of what I was told at the time from each service. So yeah, all in all, I mean, we are looking at close to $90,000 or $85,000 in repairs. Definitely not acceptable from the outside looking in, so I can 100% understand. And this really doesn't help with the whole stereotype that Ford has about, you know, being found on the side of the road dead. But all that being said, I still think I would buy 10 more of these things. And I'm going to show you guys exactly why. $80,000 is definitely a high number. That's not even adding in all the oil changes and services and stuff like that. But seriously, at the end of the day, you know, I've had this car for 6 years now. I've taken it on so many trips, made so many memories with it. And honestly, this car has built the brand. Beyond all of that, I honestly don't think that there's any other car that you can get that just compacts this much fun for under $100,000. Honestly, if I had to, I would pick this car as my unicorn. I honestly don't think that you can find a more enjoyable, more driver-friendly car under $100,000. Now I know all the freaking BMW guys are going to be in my comments saying, well, E92 M3, F80, but as good as those cars are, you have modern tech in this, mixed with raw driver feel, mixed with sound, pure stick shift, mixed with a high revving motor, really good power. I mean, 526 power isn't something to just slouch at. I mean, it's pretty fast.